Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I didn't wake up that morning thinking something terrible was going to happen. It was one of those gray December mornings where the cold doesn't slap you in the face right away. It just settles into your bones and stays there. The kind of cold that makes the house creak a little louder, makes the coffee taste more important, makes everything feel heavier. My name is Rowan Hale, and that winter, my life had been reduced to routines. Wake up before my daughter. Make coffee I barely tasted. Scroll job listings I'd already applied to. Try not to think about how I was 31 years old, unemployed, sleeping in my childhood bedroom again. Most mornings I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to my daughter breathe. That sound, soft, uneven, innocent, was the only proof I needed that leaving had been the right choice. My wife and I weren't living together anymore. I usually told people that and left it at that. It sounded cleaner, less ugly. The truth was harder to explain, especially when you're a man and people expect a certain narrative. She hadn't always been like that. When we first had our daughter Lennox, things were good. Tired, chaotic, stressful, but good. Somewhere along the line, though, something in her snapped. Her patience vanished. Her temper sharpened. And slowly, without either of us really noticing at first, most of that anger started landing on a baby who didn't understand words yet but understood tone just fine. Yelling, slamming doors, calling an 18-month-old too much. The night I left, Lennox had started crying in her crib, and instead of comforting her, my wife screamed, "Shut up," loud enough to make Lennox sob harder. That was it. I packed what I could in silence and drove to my mom's place. CPS had been involved already, police too. That morning, they'd been by again, asking questions, writing notes, telling me I was doing the right thing. It didn't feel like it. It felt like failure. Around 3:30 p.m., Lennox woke up from her nap, rubbing her eyes and babbling nonsense at the ceiling fan. "Hey, Peanut," I said, lifting her up. "You hungry?" She pointed toward the door and said, "Go." That was her word for everything. Go outside, go car, go store. The grocery store was 3 blocks away, a small, older place called Northway Market. Locals shopped there because it was cheap and close, not because it was nice. I figured we'd be in and out. I was wrong. By the time we stepped inside, the air smelled like stale bread and cleaning chemicals. The floor tiles were chipped in places and half the sale signs were handwritten with a Sharpie. I let Lennox walk, holding her hand. She hated carts, couldn't sit still. Letting her walk made her happy, and honestly, it made me feel like maybe I was doing something right. She waved at everyone. "Hi," she chirped, her voice squeaky and proud. Some people smiled. Some waved back. A few stopped to say things like, "She's adorable," or, "That age goes by fast." I smiled every time. We grabbed flour, sugar, cheap noodles. I remembered the milk last minute and cursed quietly to myself when I realized my arms were already full. I didn't grab a basket. That mistake replayed in my head later more times than I could count. As we neared the front, Lennox kept stopping, touching boxes, squatting down to inspect bright labels like they were treasure. "Come on, kiddo," I said gently. "Let's keep moving." She took 2 steps, stopped again. I was tired, stressed, but I didn't raise my voice. I never did with her. Not after everything. The customer service desk was also Register 1. It was open, but the clerk was dealing with a return. We waited. I crouched beside Lennox and started clapping. Patty cake," she laughed, completely off rhythm, waving at a man walking by. "Hi." He smiled awkwardly and kept walking. I didn't notice anyone watching us. Not yet. The clerk finally turned. "I can help you now." "Thanks," I said. I told Lennox to hold my hand. She did. I turned to pull my wallet out. I let go for maybe 3 seconds. That's when everything broke. At first, my brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. It was like watching something through thick glass, muted, distant, unreal. I turned back toward Lennox just in time to see a stranger's arms closing around her middle. He lifted her like she weighed nothing, like she was a bag of groceries, like she wasn't my entire world. For a split second, my body didn't move. I remember thinking, this is wrong. Not this is happening, just this is wrong. Then Lennox screamed. It wasn't a tantrum cry. It wasn't tired or hungry or frustrated. It was pure fear. A sharp animal sound that ripped straight through my chest and knocked the air out of my lungs. The cashier's voice cut through the noise. "Hey, what are you doing with his daughter?" Her voice cracked on the last word. The man bolted. He turned toward the entrance doors, Lennox thrashing in his arms, one tiny shoe already halfway off her foot. I dropped my wallet. It hit the floor, cards scattering, but I didn't see any of it. Everything narrowed. The entrance doors didn't open. They were one way, exit only from the other side. Someone was trying to come in, confused, pushing against them as the man slammed into the glass, panic flashing across his face. The cashier grabbed the phone. "I'm calling the police." I remember my knife then. It was clipped inside my jacket pocket. A small folding knife. I carried it for dumb reasons, cutting tags, opening juice seals, everyday stuff. My hand brushed it automatically as I ran, but I didn't pull it. I don't know why. Maybe instinct. Maybe fear. Maybe I just couldn't stand the idea of hurting someone while my daughter was watching. I hit him instead. I didn't aim. I didn't think. I just swung. My fist connected with the side of his head right above the ear. I felt the impact all the way up my arm. He stumbled, his grip loosening just enough. I tore Lennox out of his arms. She clung to me instantly, fingers digging into my jacket, face buried against my neck. Her cries were hot and wet and desperate, soaking through my collar. "I got you," I kept saying. "I got you. Daddy's here." The man didn't fight. He looked at me once, eyes wild, unfocused, and then he ran. Out the door. Gone. I slid down against the counter, legs shaking so hard I couldn't stand anymore. My daughter's heartbeat was racing against my chest. I could feel it through her jacket. Someone handed me her shoe. Another woman kept saying, "Oh my God, oh my God," over and over. The police were there within minutes. Lights flashing through the windows, red and blue washing over everything. Officers spread out fast, radios crackling. They asked what happened. I told them, shaggy hair, beard, hoodie, average height, nothing special. Nothing that would make him stand out in a crowd. That scared me more than anything. They took statements from everyone, the cashier, customers, a guy near the door who said the man had been pacing earlier, pretending to look at the sale signs. I hadn't noticed. I hated myself for that. They searched behind the building, dumpsters, alleys, nothing. One officer drove us home. Lennox had stopped crying by then, exhausted, clutching my jacket like it was the only thing keeping her anchored to the world. At the house, they asked more questions. Had I seen him before? Did anyone in my life look like him? What was my home situation? I answered everything honestly. About my wife. About CPS. About the officers who had been there earlier that day. They nodded, wrote things down, told me I'd done the right thing. After they left, the house felt too quiet. I sat on the couch with Lennox asleep on my chest, staring at the Christmas tree my mom had put up in the corner. Half the lights didn't work. The ornaments were old, some from when I was a kid. 20 minutes later, there was another knock. I almost didn't answer. When I opened the door, the same officers stood there again, but this time their arms were full. A massive box of diapers, wipes, grocery bags stacked so high I couldn't count them. A couple of toy bags tucked under one officer's arm. One of them held out a Christmas card. "We couldn't stop thinking about you," he said quietly. "About everything you've been dealing with." I tried to say thank you. I didn't make it. My knees gave out. I sank onto the floor and cried harder than I ever had in my life. Ugly, choking sobs that I couldn't stop. The kind that come from holding it together for too long. They waited, didn't rush me. Inside the card was a handwritten note. "You're a strong father. Your daughter is lucky to have you." There was cash tucked inside too. I didn't use it on myself. I bought my mom extra Christmas presents. Bought Lennox a toy kitchen she'd been pointing at every time we passed the aisle in the store. On Christmas morning, she ripped the wrapping paper with wild excitement, laughing like nothing bad had ever happened. I watched her play, safe and happy, and felt something settle inside my chest for the first time in months. I don't know who that man was. I don't know if they ever caught him. But I know this. Every time Lennox waves at a stranger now, I stand a little closer. Every time she laughs in a store, I keep my hand within reach. And every Christmas, I remember that sometimes the world shows you exactly what matters, even if it scares the hell out of you first. I still remember how normal that evening felt, and maybe that's the part that messes with me the most. I'd always loved Christmas Eve for its quiet, not the movie version with big family dinners and wrapping paper everywhere, but the calm that settles in once the sun goes down and most people are already inside. Our place usually went dead silent by 7. No traffic, no kids. Just the hum of heaters kicking on and off and the occasional bark from a dog somewhere down the road. We lived in a small rental on a dead-end street just outside a town called Ridgewood Flats. One of those semi-rural pockets where houses are spread far enough apart that you don't casually bump into neighbors. It wasn't the middle of nowhere, but it wasn't suburbia either. A few ranch-style homes, a couple old trailers, and a lot of trees. The kind of place where headlights at night actually meant something. I was on the couch with my fiancé, Caleb, both of us half distracted, half relaxed. The cable had gone out about 20 minutes earlier, and we were troubleshooting it the lazy way. Unplugging things, plugging them back in, Googling the modem model number, arguing quietly about whether the outage was definitely weather-related or just the cable company being useless again. The living room lights were dim. We only had the small lamp on by the window, the one with the warm yellow bulb we never replaced because it made the room feel softer. The TV was dark, reflecting the room back at us like a mirror. Our front door sat directly across from the couch, with a big oval-shaped glass window in the center. On either side of the living room were 2 large windows that faced the driveway and street. During the day, they let in a ton of light. At night, they mostly showed darkness and reflections. I remember leaning back against the armrest and saying, "If it's still out tomorrow, I'm calling them first thing." Caleb snorted. "Good luck. They'll say it's on our end somehow." I was smiling when it happened. The sound came out of nowhere. Tires screaming against gravel, way too fast for a driveway that short. The engine revved hard, then cut abruptly. Headlights washed over the living room walls. Before I could even process it, 2 car doors slammed shut, then yelling, "Hey, it's us!" The voices were loud, aggressive, and way too close. My first reaction was irritation. My stomach tightened the way it always did when someone showed up unannounced. "Oh my God," I muttered. "Please don't tell me that's your cousin." I turned my head toward Caleb to roll my eyes, and he was already standing. Not slowly, not confused. He moved like something had snapped him into place. In 2 steps, he was down the hallway toward the back bedroom. That's when the unease hit me. Caleb didn't spook easily. He wasn't jumpy. He wasn't dramatic. If anything, he tended to underestimate situations. The fact that he didn't even look back at me before disappearing down the hall made my chest go cold. The yelling outside got louder. "Open the door." I heard boots on the porch, heavy steps. One set, then another. Something thudded against glass. I turned toward the window on my left, just in time to see a face pressed close to it. A man. Late 30s, maybe. Scruffy beard. Wide eyes. His breath fogged the glass as he stared straight at me like he could see through the reflection. He lifted his hand and banged on the window. Hard. Behind him, another man was yanking on the front door handle, peering through the oval glass, cupping his hands around his eyes to block the glare from inside. "Let us in," he shouted. "Come on." This wasn't friendly. Not drunken lost friendly. Not wrong address awkward. This was demanding, angry, urgent in a way that made my pulse pound in my ears. My brain scrambled for logic. Maybe they had the wrong house. Maybe there was an emergency, maybe... "Babe," I yelled, my voice cracking. "Caleb." He didn't answer. The man at the window leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching the glass. "Don't act like you don't know us," he said. "We know you're home." I slid off the couch slowly, keeping my eyes on him. My legs felt weak, like I'd stood up too fast. "I'm calling the cops," I shouted, hoping my voice sounded stronger than I felt. The man at the door laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Go ahead," he said. "Just open the damn door." I backed away, moving toward the hallway, my heart slamming so hard it hurt. Caleb reappeared then, stepping out of the bedroom with something in his hands. The pistol. He didn't raise it, didn't point it. He just held it low, close to his side, his jaw tight. "Leave," he said, loud and steady. "Now." The men froze. For half a second, no one moved. Then the one at the window stepped back, lifting his hands slightly, palms out. "Whoa, man," he said. "No need for that." They retreated a few steps down the porch, closer to the driveway. I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe that was enough. Maybe... I took a step toward the door, and the second my shadow crossed the oval window, they surged forward again. "Open it!" the man yelled, slamming his fist against the door. "Let us in!" The other one ran to the side window, rattling it violently. "We're not messing around," he shouted. "You hear me?" My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone as I dialed 911. I moved back into the hallway, pressing myself against the wall, peeking through the narrow window near the kitchen. They were pacing now, agitated. One kept muttering under his breath. Then something weird happened. They started shouting names. "Ryan, it's me! Come on, man, you know who I am!" Different names, over and over, none of them ours, none familiar. The dispatcher answered, her voice calm, professional. 911, what's your emergency?" "There are 2 men trying to break into my house," I whispered. "They're on the porch, they won't leave." She asked for the address. I gave it, stumbling over the street name. "Are they armed?" she asked. I don't know," I said. "They're aggressive. They're banging on the windows." She told me officers were on the way, told me to stay on the line. Outside, the yelling shifted. The man by the driveway looked toward the truck, then back at the house. "This ain't over," he shouted. "You hear me?" The other one leaned toward the window one last time, his face twisted into something ugly. "Merry Christmas," he said, slow and deliberate. "Hope you sleep real good tonight." Then they were running. Doors slammed. The engine roared to life. Gravel sprayed as the truck tore out of the driveway, disappearing down the dead-end road without stopping anywhere else. No hesitation, no confusion, just gone. The police arrived 10 minutes later. By then the house felt different, like it had been violated without being touched. Every shadow felt wrong, every sound too loud. The officers took our statements, walked the property, shined flashlights into the trees. They told us it might have been a mistake. Wrong address. Intoxicated men. But nothing about it felt mistaken. They never followed up. Never called. Never found them. That night, Caleb and I sat awake until morning, the Christmas lights blinking silently in the corner, the cable still out. The house wrapped in an uneasy quiet that felt nothing like peace. I still think about it every Christmas Eve, about how close it came to being worse, about how normal it all started, and about how some people don't knock because they think you'll answer. They knock because they expect you to. Christmas always makes me tired before it makes me happy. Not the good tired either. Not the kind where you've laughed too much or eaten too much and collapse into bed smiling. It's the slow, heavy kind that creeps into your bones sometime after sunset, when the day is technically over but everyone keeps pretending it isn't. That year, Christmas fell on a weekday, the kind where you're expected to be cheerful, even though tomorrow still feels like a work day in disguise. Snow had been falling since morning. Not the dramatic kind, just that constant soft drift that muffles sound and makes everything feel unreal. I woke up early, despite telling myself I wouldn't. That's always been my problem. I can never fully relax on holidays. My mind keeps ticking, like it's waiting for something to go wrong. My bloke, Hari, was already awake when I came into the kitchen. Hoodie on, hair sticking up, eyes glued to his phone. "Morning," I said. "Merry Christmas," he replied without looking up. We didn't do big traditions. No matching pajamas. No forced cheer. Just coffee, quiet, and eventually food. That worked for us. By noon, the apartment smelled like reheated leftovers and coffee grounds. Outside, the street was dead. Christmas in our neighborhood always felt like a ghost town. Curtains drawn, cars unmoved, the world temporarily paused. Around 3 in the afternoon, Hari disappeared into the bedroom with his laptop. "Steam sale," he called out like that explained everything. I peeked in later. He was already lost to it. Headset on, fingers moving fast, face lit blue by the screen. I'd learned not to compete with that look. When he got like that, he was gone. So by early evening, boredom had settled in. I texted an old friend across town. "You home?" They were. I threw on my coat and boots and headed out, telling Hari I'd be back later. "Don't wait up," he said, eyes still on the screen. The visit was nice enough, too nice maybe. The kind where you talk about old memories and realize how far away they feel. We laughed, drank tea, talked about people we hadn't seen in years, but my body started shutting down around 9. That's when my phone buzzed. "Jari. Bandmates coming over. Old days, guitar stuff." I sighed. "Me. I'm tired. Jari. Won't be late, promise." He'd promised that before. Still, I headed home. Snow crunching under my boots, breath fogging in the dark. The streetlights cast long shadows across untouched snow, everything quiet in that eerie holiday way. When I unlocked the door, I heard voices. Not loud, just there. The smell hit me immediately. Cognac. Strong. Sweet. Sharp. Inside, 2 strangers sat on the couch. They stood when they saw me. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, with a shaved head and tattoos that looked older than me. The woman was shorter, stockier, hair dyed a deep red that had grown out at the roots. Both wore black like it was armor. Sunglasses indoors. I raised an eyebrow. "This is her," Hari said, grinning. "My better half." The woman smiled wide and stepped forward. "You must be the famous one." I laughed awkwardly. "Depends who you ask." They introduced themselves, names I've changed here because they don't deserve to be remembered the way they really are. Let's call them Vince and Lotta. They shook my hand. Firm, confident, normal. That's the word that sticks with me now. Normal. We talked. Small stuff, music, old shows, places that closed down. Lotta told me about her kids, both grown, both doing their own thing now. Vince cracked jokes, his accent thick but understandable. I joked, half serious, half tired. "I'm heading to bed soon. If you get too loud, I'm kicking you all out." They laughed. Lotta put a hand over her chest dramatically. "We wouldn't dare." I believed her. At least, I thought I did. I didn't stay long in the living room. That wasn't a conscious decision at first. It was more like my body quietly opting out while my mind tried to stay polite. I perched on the arm of the couch, listening to Vince and Hari reminisce about bands I'd never heard of, venues that didn't exist anymore, people who'd sold out or lost their edge. The bottle of cognac sat on the coffee table, already half empty. Shari poured generously. Too generously. I watched him tip the glass back, the liquid disappearing faster each time. His cheeks had that familiar flush, the one that made my stomach tighten just a little. He wasn't violent by nature, but strong alcohol loosened something in him. A fuse shortened. Words sharpened. I caught Lotta watching him too, not judgmental, assessing. "So," she said to me, crossing her legs, "you're not from around here, are you?" "No," I said. "Moved here years ago." "Must have been hard," she replied. "Different culture." I nodded. "You get used to it." Vince laughed. "She still says sorry when people bump into her." I smiled, but something in the way he said it rubbed me wrong, like he knew more than he should. The guitar came out eventually. Shari strummed, Vince joined in, fingers clumsy but confident. Lotta hummed along, eyes closed, swaying slightly. It was nice, loud but not unbearable. Still, exhaustion pulled at me harder with every minute. Around midnight I stood. "I'm calling it," I said. "Early night for me." Lotta stood too and hugged me without hesitation. Her arms were strong, firm. "Sleep well," she said into my ear. Vince raised his glass. "We'll keep it down." I smiled. I've heard that one before. I went to bed with the door cracked, just enough to hear if things got out of hand. At first, they didn't. The music faded. The talking softened. I drifted in and out, half listening to laughter and clinking glasses. At some point, I remember thinking maybe I'd been wrong to worry. Then I slept. I woke up choking on sound. Not noise, shouting, angry, raw, the kind that snaps you awake instantly, heart hammering before your brain even catches up. I sat up, disoriented, the red digits of the clock glowing. 5:02 a.m. Something crashed in the living room. "Enough!" someone yelled. Another voice shouted back, words slurred, sharp-edged. I swung my legs out of bed, adrenaline burning away the sleep. My hoodie was on the chair. I pulled it over my head and stepped into the hallway. The light from the living room spilled out like a wound. And there he was, Hari. Standing stiff, shoulders hunched forward, arm outstretched, a knife in his hand, pointed straight at Vince. Time slowed in a way I can't properly explain. I remember thinking absurdly that it was the good kitchen knife, the sharp one I always told him not to leave in the sink. Vince stood frozen, hands half raised. Lotta was between them, turned slightly sideways like she was used to standing between angry men. Everyone was shouting at once. Finnish, English, drunk nonsense colliding in the air. "What the hell is going on?" I yelled. No one answered. I didn't think, I just moved. "Shari," I said sharply, "put it down." He turned toward me, eyes glassy, jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. "They disrespected me," he snapped, "in my own house. Put the knife down." I stepped closer. The blade glinted under the light. For a second, I genuinely thought he might refuse. Then his grip loosened. I took the knife from his hand. My hands were shaking, but I didn't let it show. I set it on the counter behind me, out of reach. "Everyone calm the fuck down," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded steadier, colder. The shouting continued, but quieter now. Accusations, old wounds dragged up from nowhere. Vince slurring about loyalty, Hari yelling about respect. Lotta finally snapped. She turned to Hari, her voice suddenly clear, sharp enough to cut through everything else. "How would you feel," she said slowly, "if I held a knife to your woman?" Silence. It landed wrong. I didn't realize it at the time. Back then, it sounded like logic, like empathy. I nodded. "Exactly. Think about that." Lotta looked at me, really looked. Her mouth curved into a small smile. Not warm, not reassuring, knowing. That's when my skin prickled. The argument fizzled after that, like a fire starved of oxygen. Apologies followed. Hugs, slurred laughter. The kind of drunk forgiveness that feels more like exhaustion than resolution. Eventually, Vince and Lotta grabbed their coats. "We should go," Lotta said. They hugged Hari, then me. Lotta's grip lingered. "You're always welcome to visit," she said. I forced a smile. The door closed behind them. The apartment felt too quiet. The door clicked shut behind them, and for a few seconds neither of us moved. It felt like the apartment was holding its breath. The smell of cognac still hung heavy in the air, mixed with cold air from the open door and something metallic I couldn't quite place. My hands were shaking now that there was nothing left to do with them. I locked the door. Then I leaned against it. "What the fuck was that?" I said quietly. Hari sat down hard on the couch, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "I don't know," he muttered. "I don't even remember picking up the knife." That scared me more than anything else so far. I went into the kitchen and rinsed my hands even though they weren't dirty. The water felt too hot, then too cold. I couldn't find the middle. When I came back, he was still sitting there. "I'm sorry," he said. "I really am. I shouldn't drink that stuff, it messes me up." I nodded. I'd heard that before. Still, this felt different. Bigger. We went to bed without turning off the lights. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying Lotta's words in my head. "How would you feel if I held a knife to your woman?" There was something about the way she'd said it. Not angry, not scared. Certain. Just as I was starting to drift off again, Hari spoke. "You know, they're not just old band friends." I turned my head. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. "They've killed people." I sat up so fast the blanket slid off me. "What?" "They're murderers," he said, rubbing his face. "Long time ago, before I really knew them well. Did time. Both of them." My mouth felt dry. "You're joking." "I'm not." The room felt suddenly very small. "How many?" I asked. "I don't know," he said. "A couple. Maybe more." It was complicated. I thought about Lotta's smile, about the way she hugged me, about how normal they'd seemed. "You let them into our house," I said. "I didn't think—" "No," I snapped. "You didn't." He went quiet. Sleep didn't come after that. The next few days felt wrong. Nothing else happened. No knocks at the door, no messages, no sudden revelations. Just normal life stubbornly continuing, which somehow made everything worse. I couldn't stop replaying the night in my head. Every word, every look. I kept thinking about how easily I'd stepped between them. How instinctively I'd trusted Lotta when she spoke. How natural it felt to back her up. That's what haunted me most. Not the knife, not the shouting, the normality. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way Vince never once seemed afraid. The way Lotta positioned herself during the argument, always slightly sideways, always between people. The way her voice went perfectly calm when she made her point. That wasn't instinct, that was experience. One night I asked Hari, "Did they ever talk about it?" He shook his head. "No, not directly." That scared me even more. People who brag scare you less than people who don't need to. Christmas decorations stayed up longer than usual that year. I didn't have the energy to take them down. The lights felt fake, cheerful in a way that didn't match what sat in my chest. I kept thinking about the invitation. "You're always welcome to visit." I knew we never would. Weeks passed, then months. Hari stopped drinking entirely, not dramatically, just stopped. He never touched the cognac again. Sometimes, late at night, I'd wake up and listen to the quiet, to the snow falling outside, to the city breathing, and I'd think about how easily evil blends in, how it laughs at your jokes, how it talks about its kids, how it hugs you goodnight. If I passed them on the street, I wouldn't cross to the other side, and that's the most terrifying part of all. So to the couple who spent Christmas night in my living room, the ones who smiled, drank, forgave, and left like any other guests, let's not meet again. I was 24 years old, and December had that kind of cold that seeped into your bones without asking permission. The kind where your breath fogs up car windows even after the heater's been running for 10 minutes. The kind where Christmas music sounds less cheerful and more exhausting, like it's reminding you how fast time is moving. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed that morning, pulling on thick socks, staring at my phone while snow drifted lazily past the window. That day wasn't supposed to be anything special. No plans, no drama, no danger, just lunch, a mall, and a stupid coupon for free underwear. That winter had been rough. I was working full-time, barely sleeping, constantly anxious in a way I couldn't explain to people without sounding dramatic. My boyfriend kept telling me I needed a break. "You're wound way too tight lately," he said one night while we ate takeout on the couch. "I'm fine," I lied automatically. Truth was, I'd grown up learning to be alert. My mom raised me alone, and she believed awareness was survival. Don't walk with headphones in. Always check your back seat. Park under lights. It stuck with me. So when my friend Jessa texted me that morning, "Girls' Day, lunch, mall, we use those coupons before they expire," I said yes without hesitation. I needed normal. Jessa picked me up around noon in her dented silver sedan, Christmas decorations rattling on the dashboard. "You ready to spend money we don't have?" she asked, grinning. "I'm not spending anything," I said. "That's the whole point of free underwear." She laughed. "Sure, that's what everyone says." The roads were busy, snow pushed into dirty piles along the curbs, stores were packed, everyone rushing, everyone distracted. The mall parking lot was chaos. "That spot's not even real," Jessa muttered, as a car squeezed in where no space existed. We finally parked near the entrance, laughing, shivering, pulling coats tight. Nothing felt wrong. Inside Hawthorne Plaza, everything smelled like sugar and pine cleaner. Fake garlands hung from railings. Red bows everywhere. Kids cried. Teenagers loitered. Older couples shuffled slowly, holding shopping bags like trophies. Christmas music echoed off the tile floors. I remember thinking how safe it felt. Public, bright, busy. That false sense of security is dangerous. We grabbed lunch at a small burger place near the food court. Jessa talked nonstop. Her job, her roommate drama, some guy she'd matched with online. I half listened, nodding, sipping my drink. "Okay," she said finally, standing up. "Underwear time." I rolled my eyes. "Let's get it over with." The store glowed pink and gold, exactly like it always did. As we approached, I noticed him. He stood just outside the entrance. Tall, broad, heavy-set in a way that made him seem immovable. He wore a dark hoodie that hung low in baggy jeans. His hands were buried in the front pocket, rocking slowly on his heels. He wasn't looking at the displays, he was staring straight ahead. I slowed without realizing it. "Hey," I murmured. "You see that guy?" Jessa glanced casually. "Yeah, probably waiting for someone. Why?" "I don't know," I said. "Just weird vibe." She shrugged. "You always notice stuff like that." She wasn't wrong. We walked past him and into the store. The warmth hit instantly. Perfume, lace, soft lighting. We joked, compared sizes, complained about prices like it was tradition. "Why does this cost more than my phone bill?" Jessa asked, holding something up. I laughed, relaxed. For a moment, I forgot about the guy outside. We paid, coupon redeemed, victory secured. When we stepped back into the mall corridor, I instinctively glanced around. He wasn't there. I felt stupid for feeling relieved. We walked toward the center of the mall, talking about where to go next. "Claire's," Jessa said. "I want something obnoxiously Christmassy." "Of course you do." As we walked, that feeling crept back in, like being watched. I told myself it was nothing. Crowded mall, lots of people, but my shoulders stayed tense. The store was small, bright, walls of glitter and plastic and cheap jewelry. I didn't love tight spaces, but I followed Jessa in anyway. We stopped at one of the rotating racks near the entrance. That's when I noticed movement behind me, a reflection in the mirror. I turned my head slightly. My stomach dropped. It was him, the same man from outside Victoria's Secret, standing too close, way too close. I stepped sideways, pretending to browse. He stepped with me. I shifted again. So did he. Okay, that wasn't accidental. I glanced up at him briefly, just long enough to see his face, blank, heavy-lidded eyes, a faint smile that didn't reach anywhere else. I forced a polite nod. Big mistake. His eyes locked onto mine like something clicked. I felt it immediately, that internal alarm screaming wrong, wrong, wrong. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it. Crowded mall, small store, people move around. It happens. But my body didn't believe that lie. My pulse was loud in my ears, and my shoulders stayed tight like they were bracing for impact. I could feel his presence the way you feel heat off an engine that's been running too long. I bent down slightly to look at a lower rack of earrings, pretending to be interested in tiny plastic candy canes and glittery snowflakes. He moved closer, not brushing past, not squeezing by. Closer. I could see his shoes now. Old sneakers, worn unevenly, toes pointed directly at me. No hesitation, no distraction. I straightened up slowly and glanced at Jessa. She was smiling at something on the wall, completely unaware. I didn't want to cause a scene, didn't want to look dramatic, so I did what women are taught to do. I tried to be polite. I turned my head slightly and gave him a small, awkward smile. Just a courtesy, that's all. The effect was instant. His expression shifted like a switch flipped behind his eyes. His mouth curled upward, not friendly, not shy, tight, controlled. He stared at me without blinking. Too long. My stomach dropped hard. In my head, I heard my older cousin's voice from years ago. Being nice gets you hurt. I broke eye contact and crouched again, pretending to look at the bottom rack. That's when it happened. I saw his hands disappear under the front of his hoodie. At first, I told myself it was nothing. An itch. Adjusting clothes. Normal movement. But then there was a sound. Soft. Rhythmic. A wet, repetitive motion that didn't belong in a store full of children and Christmas decorations. I didn't want to look. But I did. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the movement under the fabric. Slow. Deliberate. My throat went dry. I felt rooted to the floor, like my legs had forgotten what they were supposed to do. My brain screamed at my body to move, but nothing responded right away. He wasn't looking at me directly. He was staring at the jewelry rack, smiling. And every few seconds, his eyes flicked back toward me, checking, watching, enjoying the fact that I'd noticed. I straightened up abruptly and placed the earrings back on the hook, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped them. I turned toward Jessa, my voice barely above a whisper. Jess. She looked at me and immediately frowned. What? There's something wrong, I said. We need to move. She followed my gaze and stiffened. Oh, she said quietly. Oh, hell no. She stepped closer to me, lowering her voice. He's been behind you this whole time? I nodded. He's following you, she said, her tone sharp now. That's not accidental. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. We moved together toward the back of the store. Not running, not rushing, just walking fast enough to look normal. I could feel him behind us, every step, every shift, like a shadow that refused to break. Jessa leaned in close. Okay, cameras, counter, employees. Yeah, I whispered. Please. We pretended to browse hair accessories, pointing at random items. Oh my God, remember when these were cool? Jessa said loudly, grabbing a sparkly headband. I nodded, forcing a laugh that sounded wrong even to my own ears. Behind us, I felt him stop, then start again. Closer. I saw her before she spoke. A young woman behind the counter, probably early 20s, hair pulled back tight, eyes scanning the store like she was trained to do. Her gaze landed on him, then on us, then back on him. She stepped forward, positioning herself directly between us and him. "Sir," she said calmly, "do you know them?" He didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on me. "Sir," she repeated, "are they your friends?" Slowly, deliberately, he shook his head. Her jaw tightened. "I need you to leave the store." For a second, I thought he wouldn't. The tension was unbearable. Then he turned and walked out, just like that. My knees went weak the second he crossed the threshold. "Oh my God," Jessa breathed. "Did that just happen?" I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah." The sales associate stayed near us. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "I think so," I said. "Thank you." She nodded, but her eyes stayed alert. We stayed near the counter, trying to calm down, trying to convince ourselves it was over, that we were safe. We weren't. A minute passed, then another. I turned toward the front of the store without thinking, and stopped cold. He was there, outside, standing inches from the glass, his nose almost touching the window, his eyes locked on mine. The smile was gone. What replaced it was worse, focused, intent, hungry, like I wasn't a person anymore, like I was something he wanted. I whispered, barely able to breathe, "Jessa, he's still here." She looked. Her face went pale. Oh my God. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The mall noise faded into the background. Christmas music, chatter, footsteps, all of it drowned out by the sound of my own heartbeat. He didn't blink, didn't shift. Just stood there, inches from the glass, staring straight through me. It felt personal, not random, not confused, intentional. I grabbed Jessa's wrist so hard she hissed. "He's watching me," I whispered. "He's not even pretending anymore." "I know," she said. Her voice was tight. "I see it." The sales associate followed our line of sight and immediately stiffened. "Okay," she said, low and controlled. "Don't leave the store." She picked up the phone behind the counter and turned her back slightly, but I could hear her. "Yeah, this is Claire's by the East Wing. We need security. Now." Relief and fear hit me at the same time. Relief that someone believed us. Fear because I didn't know what would happen next. Those next few minutes felt longer than they should have. The man stayed where he was, tracking every move I made inside the store. When I shifted left, his eyes followed. When I stepped closer to Jessa, his head tilted slightly, like he was recalculating. At one point, he raised his hand and rested it against the glass. Flat. Claiming. I had never seen that look in someone's eyes before. Not anger, not lust. Something colder. Predatory. Jessa leaned in. "He's stalking you," she whispered. "Thanks," I muttered. "That really helps." She squeezed my hand. "We're not leaving you alone. Not for a second." I nodded, barely breathing. Eventually, an older man in a security jacket appeared at the entrance of the store. He looked tired, thin, slightly hunched, like this wasn't the first thing he'd rather not deal with today. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked. The sales associate spoke first. She explained everything. How the man followed us, ignored her questions, wouldn't leave the window. I added details, my voice shaking despite my best effort to keep it steady. The security officer sighed and glanced toward the entrance. The man was gone. He shrugged. "Well," he said, "he's not here now." I stared at him. "That's it?" He spread his hands. "If he comes back, let me know." That was it. No report, no escort, no concern. I felt something crack inside my chest. The sales associate looked furious. She turned to us. "I'll walk you out." We didn't argue. We stuck close to the walls, moving quickly but not running. Every reflection in the glass storefronts made my heart jump. I kept expecting to see him step out from behind a pillar. But we made it to the exit. Cold air hit my face like a slap. The parking lot felt huge and exposed. We speed-walked to my car, jumped inside, and locked the doors immediately. I sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. Jessa exhaled shakily. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know," I said. "But I don't ever want to feel that again." That night I told my boyfriend everything. He was furious. We called mall management, filed a complaint, pushed for answers. They brushed it off. One person suggested the man might have had a disability and had wandered off without supervision. Maybe, maybe not. But I know this. He knew what he was doing. He reacted to questions. He followed deliberately. He targeted, crowded mall, middle of the day, Christmas decorations everywhere. I wasn't alone, and it still happened. I used to think danger announced itself. Dark alleys, empty streets, late nights. I was wrong. Sometimes it happens under fluorescent lights, between glittery earrings and fake snowflakes, while Christmas music plays overhead. Trust your instincts. Don't be polite when you're scared, and never assume you're safe just because you're in public.